I would say that that's an attention to detail element that Kirby has not. Mark Richt has lost control of the wallpapers.
Wallpapers. Welcome to My Gotta Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I preview Georgia's SEC championship matchup with Alabama. We talk through what we're looking for in the game, and we answer questions from you, our listeners. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My Gotta Podcast. Finally, we'd love for you to check out our presenting sponsor, Oxia Time, at oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. All right, John, another SEC championship preview episode. My Gotta Podcast.
Here we are, another SEC. It had to be us.
It had to be.
It had to be us and Alabama for all the marbles. Everything's on the line. Although we are recording this on Tuesday, so the CFP has come out, and I am not a huge gambling man, but Alabama at number 8, if they were to win this game, seems still a pretty far stretch to make the CFP if they were to do that.
Yeah, I put Alabama in the class of needs help. So
Needs help.
Meaning like winning isn't necessarily enough. Other dominoes need to fall. I don't know. That's how I feel. Stuart Mandel put something out today that he basically feels like the win over Georgia would vault them up so high that they would like jump to 3 and eliminate like the whole Texas debate. But considering Texas beat Alabama at Alabama, I don't know that I totally subscribe to that. So I don't know. I feel like they would need help. But the top 4, I would say the top 5 from tonight's rankings being Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Oregon. Those are the 5 teams that I feel like need no help. You win and you're in for those 5.
Got it. Yeah.
Anybody lower to me needs something else to happen, even if they win.
Yeah. I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves on the games of note this weekend, but yeah,
we can circle back to that for sure.
Yeah. So Georgia versus Alabama for the SEC title, and what, in my opinion, is going to be the last of the what makes college football great era. Like, in my opinion, this is a turning of the page in the annals of college football, from the greatness of the sport to what I feel like is going to be the beginning of the end.
Man, you said you're like being like grumpier than me about this.
I'm very grumpy about it because here's the thing: like, it didn't hit me until the Georgia Tech game. Like,
yeah,
in a 12-team playoff, that game doesn't matter, and in a 12-team playoff, this game doesn't matter, and those are special things. Like, those are special parts of college football that are losing their luster, no matter how you shake a stick at it. I mean, you effectively saw Kirby treat the Tech game like it was a glorified practice. We had to win that game, but it was a glorified practice.
Right.
Imagine what it looks like when it's a glorified practice and it doesn't frickin' matter.
Right. And the other thing there is, like, I do, everyone says, well, you want to win, you want to get the bye week and all that, or you want to get the playoff bye, but I'm not sure. I don't know, man. Cause like, if you look at baseball now, right, you get that early series win, and then you're hot and you're ready where the other team's been waiting. And so we're going to find out really quickly next year when you get into that opening round and you've got all the higher seeded teams with the home game. That team wins in front of a raucous crowd at home. Who knows? They may go and then upset, one of those top 4 seeds. They got to buy. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, getting an extra home game, like Tate Ratledge said, like, you always want one more.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably a good thing about the playoff expansion, is putting playoff games in a home and home or a home and away environment.
Yeah, but if you play your way into a top 4 seed with a bye, you don't get one, which is what's weird, right?
Which is weird, super weird.
So
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
uh,
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year. But the point is that this is the last game on CBS. It's the last game of
mhm.
the 4-team CFP, which frankly, in my opinion, has been pretty straightforward. I mean, I
Yeah,
have a feeling in the CFP era, there's been a handful of situations where we've ended up in the where the teams that were left were basically wouldn't have been picked by the BCS.
Mhm.
We've had a lot of like BCS that would have picked these teams kind of thing.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
been nice to have a playoff where you actually have teams that have to win games. Like, I mean,
yeah.
everybody had Michigan penciled when we played them, and we blew the doors off of them and blew the
Yep.
doors off of TCU. TCU beat up Michigan. So
Yeah. I think it has served its purpose.
it has served a purpose, yes. And we had the great game with Ohio State.
Mhm.
Um,
Rose
it,
Bowl.
it
Was
brought
it
us
Rose Bowl?
Rose Bowl, yeah. So, but you are kissing it goodbye,
Yeah.
because next year none of it matters.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Um, well, I brought a new bourbon this week, John.
oh, what'd you
Um,
get? What'd you get? What'd you get? Let me.
so this is a Yellowstone. It is a
Ah,
Yellowstone hand-picked collection. I got it from my local Concord ABC store, so it's hand selected by Concord ABC.
ooh, you got a sword pick,
It's a
Yellowstone.
single barrel, 102 proof. So, but John, this is Yellowstone. Drinking this on purpose because I hope the dogs take Alabama to the train station.
Take him to the train station. I love it. I love it.
uh,
You take that piece of shit to the train station.
I missed that show. It's been away for too long.
Man, that show is great. Even the offshoots have been great. I really enjoyed the offshoots of that series.
So what did you bring this evening?
I have another mixture
Okay.
of all the bourbons. I have a mixture of what we've been drinking or what I've been drinking at the tailgates
Mhm.
this year, which is the Port Isaac Bowman Port Barrel. Nice flavorful bourbon finished in port barrels, which I'm a big port barrel um finished bourbon fan. And let's see, I've got some of my I've got some of that. I've got some of the elite bourbon,
Mhm.
my infinity bottle. I've got some of the juke joint bourbon from that I've been kind of has been a bit of a nostalgic pour for me from 2021, because I had the similar pour at the beginning of that season, which I kind of drank all year long, and so I've been drinking a lot of that and some of our previews this season.
Okay.
Um, I've got a little bit of the Four Roses Small Batch Select that I was able to. I've actually have kept since 2021 with the national championship sticker that
Mhm.
I made for that. I made for that bottle. So I poured a little bit of that in here. I've got a little bit of EHT, which has just been, one of my favorite bourbons. So it's a cocktail of all of the eliteness that has been from the last few years.
Nice. Nice. I like it. Well, cheers. And to the last SEC. This is also the last SEC championship between the SEC East and West. It'll be divisionless next year. So
Right.
last one there, last one on CBS. So we can drink to that.
Amen.
All right.
Well, not amen, but it is what it is.
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. All right, let's run down the matchup. So kickoff is on Saturday at 4:00 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I assume the roof will be closed. I heard that like contractually it has to be closed. It's like regardless of the weather.
No swirling winds.
No swirling winds. Correct. Controlled environment. Remember, we used to talk about that a lot with Stetson. So the Dogs come in 12-0, 8-0 in the SEC. Alabama also 8-0 in the SEC, but 11-1 with their only loss to future conference foe Texas. Let's see. Dogs are ranked number 1 in all the polls. Alabama is 8 everywhere, including the playoff, as you mentioned earlier. like we said, last broadcast for CBS, Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, and Jenny Dell on the sideline. And the official hashtag is hashtag SEC championship, the word championship written out. So that'll be a long one to include in the tweet pregame. All-time history, this series, Alabama leads the series 42, 26, and 4. And the last meeting between these two teams, obviously the Dogs won 33-18 in Indianapolis. So I just realized I did not look up what the weather was going to be like for those tailgating. So it actually does look, there is some rain in the forecast.
Rain was in the forecast last I looked.
Yeah, so there is rain in the forecast. So if you're going to be down there and you're going to be tailgating, make sure you have a tent, maybe your rain gear. Because it looks like could rain until about around 6 or so. So it looks like it could be raining all the way up until kickoff. But once you get into the comforts of Mercedes-Benz, you'll be nice and dry.
Yeah, that's actually day 2 of a front coming through that starts on Friday. So
okay,
it's going to be wet.
Got it. All right, that is it for the batch up. JP, what do you have for us in the realm of fun facts?
All right, I'll start off with my fun facts, and then we'll get into Casey's Hargret history. All right, so I'm gonna hit a couple of little things here, and then I'll expound on what Tuscaloosa is in just a second. So, do you know of any famous alumni from the University of Alabama? They're not sports related.
Okay. Non-sports related. Shoot, I can't think of any offhand. I'm sure there's plenty.
Okay, so there's a couple. Honestly, I was a little underwhelmed by the list of famous alumni. And in fact, some of these people that are listed as quote unquote alumni are not actually alumni, as similar to earlier this season. But Harper Lee, author of the famous To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right. I should have known that.
Attended school, did not graduate.
Okay.
Did not graduate. I assume because she was writing one of the great Pulitzer Prize novels, To Kill a Mockingbird.
It's a good one.
Let's see. So other notable alumni that I feel like are, is not an alumni, but definitely attended and is notorious. Bernie Madoff.
Nice. Okay.
A fraudster.
Yes.
A fraudster attended Alabama. He went for his freshman year, but ended up transferring to Hofstra, where he graduated from. But yeah, that was one of the fun ones. And then another fun one, famous actor from the Andy Griffith Show, Jim Nabors.
Okay.
I believe he played Barney, if I'm not mistaken. I'll check my math, but I believe he played Barney on that one.
Wasn't Barney Don Knotts?
Maybe I'm wrong on that one then. I don't know. He played Gomer. Sorry, Gomer.
Okay,
Pyle.
there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so Tuscaloosa, the actual founding of Tuscaloosa itself is actually rather tragic in and of itself. Do you have any idea about the history of Tuscaloosa?
No, but I have a guess where this is going.
Well, what's your guess?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start with Tuscaloosa, just the name Tuscaloosa. Do you know what Tuscaloosa actually is or means?
I don't.
So Tuscaloosa is actually named for an Indian chief, Tuscaloosa. It comes from a combining of Indian phrases, Tusca meaning warrior and Lusa meaning black, so black warrior.
Okay.
So Tuscaloosa was actually founded after Andrew Jackson, who was president during the time in the 1800s. He basically disbanded the entire methodology that kept the Indian tribes separate, and he was a big driver of moving towards pushing them to being, pushed onto reservations and basically combining them into the Indian race if you will, as opposed to the Creeks and that kind of thing. The various tribes. He basically was a big force in pushing them to be one big in Native American tribe.
Got it.
There was a battle with the Creeks, and after that battle, a few years later, they founded Tuscaloosa with the encroaching white population. Basically, had been encroaching on the Native American land, and they basically just took it. So Tuscaloosa, basically founded off of settlers taking the land from Indians, which many cities in America could probably share that, but Tuscaloosa itself has actually got that name.
Got it.
But yeah, so that's kind of the history there of the city of Tuscaloosa. And Tuscaloosa is also home to the University of Alabama, as we all know, and we are currently playing them. So that leads me to Jason Hasty's Hair Grit history. When thinking about sports history, it's important to be mindful of the experience of fans. I know that you and I have shared unique experiences, as we all have, and there's one particular game with Georgia and Alabama where they met at Sanford Stadium on October 2nd, 1976, which is going to be very important for those of you that do remember, if you were around for that game. But if you weren't, I've got some news for you that you probably are going to be a little surprised about, as I was.
Yeah.
Were you familiar with this before Jason sent this over?
I was not, and I'm eager to discuss this with my parents.
That's true. You know what?
Yeah.
I need to actually ask my dad about this. I didn't even think about that. My dad was probably not there during this time, but
so they were. Yeah, I mean, my parents were out of college, but they were in Macon, so they were still in the state. So I'm curious if what they know about this.
Heard about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So again, Georgia and Alabama met in Sanford Stadium, October 2nd, 1976. Georgia was undefeated and ranked number 6 in the AP poll, and Alabama had one loss and was ranked number 10. The game was notable, obviously, for a top 10 matchup. Georgia's defense, which is nicknamed Ronnie and the Runts for their small size outside of the defensive lineman Ronnie Swoops. They held Alabama's wishbone offense to only 163 yards, and the Bulldog offense put 3 touchdowns on the board for a 21-0 victory. Lord have mercy, can history please repeat itself? It was the first time Alabama had been shut out in 69 years. I wonder if they've been shut out since. I have to go back and take a look at that. Maybe we can really repeat that history.
Wow.
The most memorable aspect of this game, however, had nothing to do with what happened on the field. It had everything to do with what happened off the field. Alabama made the decision to stay at a hotel in Athens on the night before the game. This was a decision that they'd regret, as Georgia fans kept the Alabama team awake all night. They surrounded the hotel with cars so that they could honk horns and shine their high beam headlights at the hotel through all hours of the night. During the game, a capacity crowd of 60,000 people filled Sanford Stadium, while an estimated 12,000 fans watched the game from Sanford Bridge and the tracks. Again, who's that coming down the tracks?
What's that coming down the tracks? Don't want to upset people, John.
well, we're talking about who in that case.
That's true. True. Good call.
But nonetheless, point made. We've successfully triggered everyone. The railroad track crowd brought along kegs of beer to keep up their spirits during the game, as they were known to do. The win sparked one of the largest parties in Athens history, and it was centered on Millage Avenue. Can you imagine that? I don't know. I can't imagine that. From our time at school, I can't imagine what that must have been like, but I bet it was epic. The Athens Banner Herald described the scene on Millage as hysteria and compared it to the mass streaking events that had taken place on campus during the spring of 1974. maybe Luke can tell us a little bit more about that. I don't know. The Red and Black wrote that people were literally dancing in the streets, stopping cars to shake hands, kiss the pretty girls, and just generally talk about the dogs. Cars traveling from Five Points to Broad Street took over an hour to make the trip. Fraternity and sorority parties merged into a large open air festival that the police could not control. So eventually, Millage Avenue between Five Points and Broad Street was closed to traffic, and the party was allowed to continue unabated. Jason says that he's had the pleasure of speaking with hundreds of Georgia fans each year. Some of them have come through this year from these stories on the podcast. So definitely go and have a conversation with Jason and check out the Dooley exhibit. But he says that almost all of them who were in Athens in 1976 bring up this event and how joyous it was. We must always remember that what fans experience is oftentimes as meaningful and sometimes more meaningful as the contest on the field.
Man, yeah, amen. Absolutely.
Amen to that. Yeah.
I was going to say, I've been showing some stuff that Jason sent us. The only thing I have not shown while you were talking through that yet, John, was the ticket stubs from that season.
Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back to the pictures again.
Okay, I got the program up now.
Okay, so this is the program from the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I want to note about this, with the Ronnie and the Runts, there are two names on this. There are two names on this roster that should probably stick out like sore thumbs for every person that knows Georgia football. There are two Tereshinskis on this roster. Joe Tereshinski shows up on this roster. I can imagine that boy was having fun on Millage.
Yes.
But that's like UGA royalty right there, right? Like there's, and I mentioned that to Jason, and Jason said he's convinced that there's pretty much almost always universally a Tereshinski on the UGA roster.
Yes, but not only Joe Tereshinski, but also Wally Tereshinski.
Wally Tereshinski, which I was not familiar about Wally Tereshinski.
Yeah, me neither.
To be perfectly transparent, but obviously the Joes, the Joes were well known.
Right.
Nothing else sticks out other than the amazing Coke ad on that one. But the other really cool things that he sent through a picture from the game, but then like Jim said, if you're on the YouTube, definitely go check it out. Check out the full ticket allotment from 1976 that you can see there. Let's just say that the ticket game has been upped over time.
Yes.
I will say that I love the coloration for the Georgia Tech game. That I felt like had to have been purposeful. The other thing of note on these tickets is that you'll see that they are a face value of $8 in 1976. I was curious and I did the math. I was told there would be no math, but we did the math. $8 in 1976 would be the equivalent of about $43 in today's money. So really good value for money as it turns out, particularly for a team that was so highly ranked.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Shout out to Jason again for providing Hasty's hard grit history. The unofficial official historian, only because it's funnier to say that. He's obviously the official historian.
How about that lineup, the roster for 19, or not the roster, the home game schedule looked pretty solid.
I know, yeah. Cal, South Carolina, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Cincinnati, and Georgia Tech.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's crazy. It was wilder back then than it is now.
Seriously, I don't know if Cincinnati was any good back then, but
yeah.
I know that Cal and Alabama were.
Yeah, at least was the variety. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Right.
Hey, even with the Georgia-Florida game being a neutral site back then, they were able to figure these things out. So who knows? Josh Brooks, we're looking at you. All right, let's move on to the news and notes. The news and notes are brought to you by Home Field Apparel. So be sure to go and check them out. I think today was the last day you could use the code Cyber Monday So if that's still not working for you, you can always use the code HunkerDown. That's our code. That'll get you 15% off of your first order from Homefield. And we'd love it also if you hit up homefield.mygodapodcast.com to get there, or you just head over to mygodapodcast.com. We've got a spot where you can scroll down, click on a link to shop at Homefield. But they've got great vintage apparel. It's premium vintage apparel. They got some really cool old school Georgia logos. Be sure to go check those out. And there's a sweet bomber jacket too. So if you're needing a jacket this time of year, head over to Homefield and check that out. So, John, for the news and notes, basketball minute, the Dogs defeated Winthrop over Thanksgiving at home. And next up, we've got 2 games this week. We play at Florida State in the ACC SEC Challenge on Wednesday at 9:15 p.m. on the ACC network. So that's a big one. Excited to check that out. And then Friday, 7 p.m. on SEC Network or ESPN Plus, if you can't make it, playing against the Mercer Bears. So we will be watching Mike White's squad there. The other, I think the big piece of news, you were recording on Tuesday this week that we wouldn't have known had we recorded on Monday, is that Fran Brown, Georgia's defensive backs coach, has been hired as Syracuse's head coach. No word yet officially on whether he will be remaining, throughout the rest of the season. We've seen that before, like when Dan Lanning got the Oregon head job, for example, he stayed at Georgia through all the way through the postseason, through national championship. I think some folks were kind of assuming that would happen, but no official word on that as of yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss Fran Brown, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's done good work. He's done good work. This is what happens when you have a premier program, though. People are going to come after your coaches.
People coming for the coaches. I feel a little bit better about it after the names that I've heard. All the guys and the Dog Central crew have been, rattling off multiple names. I guess that to a certain extent, that's probably one of the premier defensive, one of the premier position coaching roles in the country would be to come in and coach our secondary with Kirby Smart.
Right, for sure.
It probably would be the equivalent of like someone going to say like Ohio State to coach wide receivers kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair. So let's see, from Kirby's press conference, just going to hit on a couple of injury notes. He got asked about Julian Humphrey and JDJ. He said they're week to week with their injuries, trying to get both those guys back. The only thing I will say on that is Julian Humphrey tweeted a picture of himself and said, "Go Dogs." And then our guy, Trigger Trey, retweeted that and said, "Yes, that means he's playing." So this is not inside sources or anything, but this is what was on Twitter by Trey. So I'm going to trust TT7 on this one. So I think we may actually see number 12 on the field at corner this weekend.
Yes, that would be amazing. In my opinion, getting number 6 off the field is probably going to be a situation that would be favorable for us, because when he is on the field, he's probably going to get picked on, and we'll get to some of that later.
Yeah, there were nothing in the press conference about any of the guys that missed the Tech game. Those offensive guys. So we didn't see anything about Ladd, Bowers, Tate, Rara. So we will wait and see on that.
You and I in the podcast after the podcast were kind of talking about that last time, that it seemed like that they had Tate suited up, they had Brock suited up, so like in an emergency or a bind they probably could have played, but I don't know. I would assume that they're not going to miss this game.
Right. And then the only other thing was at Tuesday media availability, Kendall Milton was being interviewed, and he said that today, Bloody Tuesday, was one of the most physical, chippiest practices all year. So hopefully that's music to everyone's ear heading into the showdown with Alabama.
I'll do a side note on player interviews. I've been super impressed. If you've watched the Kirby Smart All Access, and if you've watched any of the press conferences in the lead up to the SEC title with like Cedric Van Pran, who else was up there? Kamari Lassiter was up there earlier this week as well. And all of them have been basically saying the same things. My biggest takeaway in the last couple of weeks in watching the players speak to the media is that they're completely focused and completely bought in, if that makes anybody feel any better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's
sure.
saying the same things. It's almost like they're reading from talking points, but it genuinely feels that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know that's perfect. I feel like that's the way we like it. You want
Yeah.
them. Yeah, I feel like that means the message is getting through to them, and they're not going to give any bulletin board material either, because that's what everyone's trying to get out of them.
The word of the week this week was connection, which I think is good because the feedback coming out of the tech game was that there wasn't as much connection. So it sounds like that they are addressing some of the mistakes from last game.
Got it. All right, well, let's jump into some of these matchups. Talk about starting off, I guess, what we're looking for when Georgia has the ball. So the Georgia offense, the Alabama defense. So Alabama defensive coordinator is Kevin Steele. It should be a familiar name. We've seen him around before. He was at Auburn a few years ago for several years. So we're definitely familiar with him. But this is year one for him at Alabama as defensive coordinator. The leading tackler for Alabama is freshman defensive back Caleb Downs. He was a big Georgia recruit target. He's their leading tackler with 95 total tackles. He also has 2 interceptions. Their leading interceptor is Terrion Arnold, the sophomore defensive back. He has 5 picks this year. And their sack leader is Dallas Turner, a junior, 8 sacks on the season. He is he's a menace. We've seen him before, and he's good. He's good. One other person to call out, I wanted to call out, much like last week, we're dealing with some familiar faces on the other side of the field this week. So Tresman Marshall, the Georgia transfer linebacker, he has 2.5 sacks and 50 total tackles on the season. So
he has more tackles than Dallas Turner.
Yeah, and he is, I believe he's starting. So how the tables have turned there. We've got linebackers transferring from Georgia to Alabama to get playing time. Kind of crazy to think about that.
It is kind of crazy. I imagine there's going to be a number of elevated emotions in that regard on those guys that have moved on.
Yeah, agreed. So, I mean, I guess what are you looking for there? I think obviously we talked about, right? Like, will we see Tate? Will we see Ra? Will we see Brock? Will we see Ladd? So obviously that's something to look for. But in general, what are you looking for?
So I would say that one of the as you were just rattling some of those numbers off, right? So the biggest thing that sticks out to me is the leading tackler is a defensive back. And you and I talked about this earlier in the season that, as the numbers were trending towards, towards the season going longer, like earlier in the season, we were commenting about how Tyke Smith and, Javon Bullard, like they were the leading tacklers earlier in the season. And we saw our linebackers and, defensive backs, our defensive linemen kind of take over there. But I know Tyke Smith is still our leading tackler, but
he wasn't for a bit. He is again. It just swapped for a little while.
He wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't for a bit. He is again. But that's something that kind of sticks out to me. Now, what I will say about the big difference there is that Tyke Smith is our leading tackler at 63 tackles. Like their leading tackler is a defensive back in almost 100 tackles, right?
Right.
What that tells me is that people are getting into the second level.
Right.
And I have a feeling that that's going to be the difference maker here, is being able to get beyond the line of scrimmage. And these games between Bama and Georgia are always line of scrimmage games. And if we can get their defensive back to be the leading tackler in the game, that probably bodes well for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have, Alabama has a pretty good defense this year. So they're 17th in the FBS in total yards allowed per game. They're 10th in success rate. So, it's a good defense. We mentioned Dallas Turner. That's what I'm going to be looking for is, can we keep him in check? Because when we were putting our focus on Will Anderson 2 years ago, we actually were able to have a pretty good plan for Will Anderson and slow him down. So can we slow Dallas Turner down? You're not going to, I don't foresee us completely shutting him down, but can we slow him down? Can we keep him in check?
You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him.
Exactly. So there's that. if we have Brocky and Ladd, again, that can just create amazing mismatches, having them in a similar area to add to confusion. Would love to have that be the case. And then the other thing is with the running backs, we've talked about Kendall Milton lately, and he is the hot back right now. I want to feed Kendall Milton. I would love to feature him. One thing I'm going to be watching, like first play. I mean, Dejan has been the starter ever since he's come back, for missing his first few games.
Right.
Who's going out there first? Is it going to be Dejan? It has been Dejan, or is it going to be Kendall? Kendall is on fire right now, so I wouldn't be shocked if he's first back out there.
I mean, here's the thing. So I think that Kendall is the hot hand. I would say that Kirby Smart would probably, if you were to ask him who's the starting running back, he'd probably say Kendall and
he
Kendall
would.
and
You're totally right. He would say they're both the starter.
Yeah, like I mean, they're 1A and 1B, right? Like that's kind of been the approach. I feel like that in my opinion, I think that he clearly likes Dejan Edwards' pass blocking ability, because it feels like that he's out there a lot more when. I mean, I have no statistical data to showcase this, but I have a feeling that's part of the reason why they want him out there is because he makes the play action game very effective.
Right. So yeah, excited to see what Bobo dials up here going up against Kevin Steele. And, I think Carson Beck is proven at this point. And, first SEC championship game start for him, first game against Bama for him, but he's played on the road now in hostile environments. He's played in a big time neutral environment in the cocktail party. And, like we said earlier, we'll have a controlled environment. You don't have to worry about the cold. You don't have to worry about the weather. It's field turf, which is what we practice on at home in our practice facility. So I think those things all bode well for offense to be able to operate inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so I think that one area that's going to be interesting to watch is just the overall passing explosiveness that we're able to generate, because that's one area where Alabama is not quite as good.
Okay.
They've been a little susceptible to some of these explosive plays, kind of not too dissimilar to us on the running side of things. So if Carson Beck can throw for 275, 250, if he can hit his 250 metric, I like our odds, and I like our odds to increase in this game on that.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think we're back to that point of do what you do, keep your composure, protect the football.
Yeah.
Because we didn't do that against Georgia Tech.
Football. Yeah,
we didn't do that against Georgia Tech. We need to protect the football. So
yeah, agreed. So if you were looking at these two teams on paper, they're very, very similar on both offense and on defense.
Yeah.
The big difference is that Georgia is very much more efficient and they're very much more explosive than Alabama is.
Yeah.
The Georgia offense is in the upper echelon of, college football offenses, as we've seen, both from an efficiency and, explosiveness. If you follow Dog Stats, he's got some of these metrics up there and he's got everything beautifully graphed, where you can see the offense versus the defense, and look at the success rates and all those things. So go check out Dog Stats on Twitter, and you can see some of those graphics for yourself. But like I said, from a defensive standpoint, both of these teams are pretty evenly matched. But on the offense is where these two teams kind of get disparate.
Got it. All right. Well, before we move on to the defense, why don't we take a moment to remind everyone that season 4 of My Gata podcast is presented by Oxia Time. So Oxia Time, they are American designed, Swiss made. So they're high-end Swiss watches. You got to go check out their 2021 and 2022 Georgia National Championship collection. They have their own Oxia Time branded watches as well. So definitely go over to oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com, and you can check all of that out. You can also use the code HUNKERDOWN to get 10% off your timepiece. So John and I know, John, you've really enjoyed yours. I've enjoyed mine. I like to use the NATO band. You like to use your steel band, and no, it's a great timepiece.
I love it. I love. I've got the beautiful red, the red background with the there's you can kind of see the power G's. They make up a design that kind of give it a bit of a herringbone pattern, if you will. But yeah, it's beautiful.
Awesome. Well, shout out to OxyTime. Thanks again for being the presenting sponsor of season 4 of My God Podcast. All right, let's talk about our defense, their offense. So what we're looking for when Alabama has the ball. So again, a first-year coordinator. So Saban with 2 new coordinators this year. Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees came over from Notre Dame. Also, I did want to add another notable offensive coach, John, tight ends coach Joe Cox. So he's still a tight ends coach for the Tide.
Joe Cox.
Memories. Anyway, so notable players, obviously, quarterback Jalen Milroe. He's 158 of 238 for 2,526 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, 6 picks. He is also the 3rd leading rusher on the team, 126 carries, 439 yards, and 12 touchdowns. They've got a pair of senior running backs in Jace McClellan. He's got 803 yards and 6 touchdowns on 166 carries. And then Roy Dell Williams has 497 yards, 4 touchdowns on 94 attempts. At the receiver position, again, kind of 2 top guys, one being Jermaine Burton, the senior transfer from Georgia. He leads Alabama with 749 yards on 33 catches for 7 touchdowns. And then sophomore Isaiah Bond, he's the one that caught the game winner against Auburn, I believe. He's got 39 catches, 542 yards, and 4 touchdowns. One thing I do want to point out about Burton. So Burton has 749 this year. 197 of those were against Texas A&M in one game. So he exploded against Texas A&M. So what are you looking for when Alabama's got the ball, John?
Stop the run.
Yeah.
Set the edge, stop the run.
Yeah.
If we can make Jalen Milroe, if we can make Milroe one-dimensional, I like our chances.
Agreed. We are, something we've talked about on the podcast before in the past is backyard football, right? And dealing with a quarterback that likes to play backyard football. And that is what he does. He holds the ball longer than any quarterback in FBS, I believe. I don't remember who to quote that on. I saw that on Twitter, so it must be true. Carson Beck actually gets rid of the ball like the fastest. I think of I can't remember what the samples, what the subset was, but maybe it was even just the SEC. Like Carson Beck actually releases the ball the fastest. Milroe takes the most time, but it's because he's extending plays with his legs, right? And he will extend a play and throw it. Sometimes he'll run across the line of scrimmage and throw it. Can't do that. But he'll even do that. But yeah, man, we have to have a plan there. I don't know what we're gonna do there. Will we have a spy? I'm not really sure, but I know Kirby did talk about that in the press conference and talk about how there are multiple things you have to worry about. You have to worry about the design runs. Then it's a different thing to worry about the design runs versus the scrambles. So I don't know. In Kirby, we trust. I trust Kirby and Coach Shu and Coach Boom to come up with a plan for that.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I would say that you're looking for from the other thing that I would say that we're looking for is just like I said, the running game, like the running backs don't jump off the plate at you, right?
Yeah, no.
Their leading rusher is averaging 4.8 yards per carry. By contrast, our Dejon Edwards is averaging 5.3 yards per carry. Kendall Milton's averaging 6.5 yards per carry. They don't have any running back that's graded any better than either of our 2 starters, Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton. I don't see in the stats that I'm looking at right now, I don't see the yards per carry for Jalen Milroe from a rushing standpoint. I know that that's kind of part of their game. But if they're averaging 4.8 yards per carry, even if they're just hitting their averages, I still like our chances there. I think that we're going to be able to impact them to where they're going to have probably their season low from a running standpoint. And we're gonna put the game in Jalen Milroe's hands, and we're gonna challenge him to beat us through the air.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's where we're going to be able to get him.
Yeah, I agree. He averages around 3.5 yards a carry by my math, but that might include sacks as attempts. I'm not 100% sure, but shoot, I know I know George Foster said we're going to beat them and their wing T quarterback. So
that wing T quarterback, that was amazing.
I mean, he struggled early, right? I mean, they switched quarterbacks. They had that one game where they went through like 3 quarterbacks and didn't play him. I mean, he's definitely come on late. He had a huge moment against Auburn, declared he needed the Heisman in the post game, but he's feeling it right now, and he's got a lot of confidence going to come in sky high. But I agree, man. If we can, we're going to focus on shutting down the run game and see if he can beat us through the air. Because it is a Georgia-Alabama game, I will point out that their backup quarterback is Tyler Buckner, the Notre Dame transfer came over with Tommy Rees.
We need to get Tyler Buckner's stats up.
Yeah. So I guess the only other thing I'll say is, back in 2021, I feel like people are, I've seen a lot of comparisons to coming into this game as to coming into the last SEC championship against these guys in the 2021 season, saying, Georgia was 12-0, Georgia's number 1, Auburn was coming in with 1 loss, had just barely beaten Auburn that year, just like this year. That year went to multiple overtimes, and then we saw what Alabama did in that game. But I feel like, we had some weird things happen for us. I think there's been, we've heard about flu, things like that, but also like our defensive scheme was very odd. I know we went in thinking we were going to there was an obvious plan that Georgia should have implemented, and we went with something else, and we don't know exactly what's going on there. So I think, coaching growth, Kirby has continued to grow as a head coach. I think the staff has continued to grow. So it's not all about it, it is about the Jimmies and Joes, but I think it's scheme too. And I think, they're all continuing to improve and get better. And I feel like that's going to play a factor there as well.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about it other than we need to stop. We need to make them one-dimensional. If we can get him in a position where he has to throw the ball, it's going to be a long day in Atlanta for Alabama.
Yeah, agreed. The only last thing I'll point out is 23 points allowed to Georgia Tech last week by the Georgia defense was actually the most points we've allowed in a game all season, in a single game.
Mm-hmm.
And second most was 21 points that we allowed to Missouri and UAB. So Georgia defense.
Conversely, what's Alabama's numbers look like?
For the most points they've allowed?
Yeah.
So let's see.
Just for fun, Jim.
Yeah, so they gave up 28 to LSU, and then they gave up 24 to Auburn, and they gave up 34 to Texas.
How do you give up 24 to Auburn?
Come on, guys. All right, let's see. Special teams nuggets. So looking at the special teams, Georgia obviously is still on the 0 punts returned. So Brett Thorson has still yet to allow a punt be returned. On the Alabama side, they have Will Reichard. Hopefully I'm getting that right. Senior kicker. He's 18-21 on field goals for the season. He is perfect on extra points, 50 for 50. He is now I'm blanking, Lou Groza. He's a Lou Groza Award finalist. But he missed a pretty critical one against Auburn, and I think Brad and Gary kind of jinxed him, talking about how well he had been playing, but missed a pressure kick against Auburn. So something to watch for there. And I must report, John, that Alabama punter James Burnip is from Australia, and he is from Pro Kick Australia. So with his name, I wasn't 100% sure. I was about to say, do these guys not even have an Australian kicker? Are they even serious? But they do. So. And before we go down a rabbit hole of Googling, he appears to be actually like normal college age as well, from the math that I did. So for what it's worth. But hey, like I said, inside, no swirling winds. So we don't have to look for that. So on our side, I'm going to say kick touchbacks when we're kicking off. And then again, protect the football.
Yeah, I agree. Things I'll be looking for on special teams are no punt returns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, we didn't talk about this because I think that the video kind of came out after we recorded our Georgia Tech review. But Peyton Woodring had a really cool TikTok video that I have never seen anyone do before. He basically was kicking from the corner horizontally through the uprights.
Like he was in the corner of the end zone, like in the end zone, almost by the back pylon.
The back pylon, yeah. He's basically kicking with zero angle through the uprights, basically curving the ball around. If you're a soccer player, you'd banana kick a corner kick or something like that into a small window. That was pretty impressive. But to do that with a football from that far outside in those windy conditions, it was incredibly impressive. If you've not seen the Peyton Woodring video, definitely go and check it out on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. But it was definitely, as a soccer player, I was thoroughly impressed because I know how hard that was.
Is it fair to say that he bent it like Beckham, JP?
He bent it like Beckham. A British Bulldog would appreciate that.
Nice. I guess the only other thing I'll say is their punt returner is Caleb Downs. So we mentioned him earlier, right? He was highly recruited. He's a freshman, defensive back for them, but he is also their punt returner. So just
how desperate do you think he's going to be to break up that streak?
To break the streak? I don't know.
How desperate do you think? How petty do you think Saban's going to be about that?
I wonder if they even have that on their radar at all. I mean, they've got to know because with all the analytics they look at, I'm sure they know.
I guarantee you they know because it's probably sticking out like a sore thumb because he's one of their weapons, right? Like,
right.
They're going to want him to break free, and I have a feeling that we're going to make it to where he's a non-factor. So again, that just goes back to that dynamic of special teams. In a tight game, all things being equal, these two teams statistically very similar, blah blah blah. Special teams can be the difference maker. So if you can pin someone back, if you can put them in a position where they want to get good field position, and you take that opportunity away from them, it really is a super weapon in a tight game like this, to be able to control the field in such a way that they can't leverage one of the big weapons that they have available to them.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, let's head to the listener questions, which are brought to you by Working Web Media. So be sure to head over to mygodapodcast.com, check out our newly redesigned site, and just know that Working Web Media, they did that for us. We weren't happy with our site, set out to redo it over the off season, and Working Web Media helped us out. So they got us set up with a new site. We were able to sit down with them, talk about what we wanted, what we were looking for, and they were able to deliver in a very quick turnaround time as well. So head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs. If you've got a small business, maybe you need some help with your online presence, but if you head over there, they'll know we sent you their way, and you can schedule an appointment with them to talk through what your online needs are. All right, first up, we got a DM from Trent Thacker, friend of the show, old friend of mine, hometown guy. He said, I'm sure you guys and many of your listeners are similar to me in that I'm a bit superstitious, not just a little stitious. Since we started winning, I've been using the same koozie, drinking the same kind of beer during games, and wearing the same shirt to games. My koozie is on its last legs, and I really want to drink a different kind of beer. And I'm also ready for a new game day shirt. When can I stop doing all this? Can I stop once we win a third straight natty in January? Or do I have to keep doing all the same stuff until we actually lose again? I'll hang up and listen. I mean, I hate to break it to you, Trent. I think you have to keep doing this.
Yeah, you got to keep doing it. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, I've said like I actually instituted the Hunter Jones approach of you have to have you have like a game day setup that includes all of your apparel plus your koozie, right? And you
Mhm.
make sure that at least one thing is different every week. But I started that for the 2021 season. So I'm sticking to that. I'll tell you what, I am not going to wear the hat that I wore during the 2021 SEC championship game on Saturday. I promise you that.
I will not be wearing that hat either because I think that you didn't we come out with these hats this season?
These are new.
These
Yeah,
are
the
the
one that
new
you have on.
hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The new white My God a Podcast rope hat available on
Yes.
mygodapodcast.com/store.
Yes. Pick one up. It sounds like you need to get him a koozie, Jim.
Yeah, true. True.
Christmas present.
Amazing.
Which you can find on My God a Podcast too, I think too, right? Or no? Did I
I
make
think
that up?
you and I have koozies. I need to yeah,
Ah,
they don't have those for sale. We have to figure that out.
yeah.
Figure that out. All right. So
Um,
sorry, Trent.
but
But
yes,
yeah.
you have to keep doing the same thing. I will tell you, I do not subscribe to the thing that Jim does because when I do wear different outfits, we have slow starts. When I don't wear when I wear my usual outfit, we don't have slow starts.
Yeah.
So I have a polo that I have to wear that I actually have worn since 21. Um, I mixed it up a little bit last year, but this year I went back to it and just have never. Every time I wore something different, we were having slow starts,
I
and
mean,
it was
I thought I could get the stink off of the 2021 SEC championship hat when we played Vanderbilt this year. And then the game started the way it did. And I will never wear that hat during a game ever
yeah,
again. Ever. Look, you can
yeah.
say these things don't matter, but I don't know. Like my experience says otherwise.
I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious.
Exactly.
Oh man, what a great line.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby Wilson. When the dogs win, gosh, Bobby coming in hot. When the dogs win, will Bama fans finally acknowledge how good UGA is and has been during this run? And does this signal the beginning of the end for Saban? Thanks, guys. I'm sure this podcast will be a great one. I appreciate the high praise and the high bar being set there, Bobby.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I've also since seen Bobby and Marler have some back and forth on Twitter this week.
I just
Which
can't quit you.
I have an amazing picture of Bobby and Marler talking to each other on the sidewalk after the Natty in LA. But anyways, I
That's
mean,
funny.
I haven't seen quite as much from Bama fans this week as in the past. I've seen it starting to creep in.
I mean,
But
Marler has been probably the biggest
yeah.
Bama fan that I've seen talking
Mhm.
trash,
Mhm.
throwing up. What second and 26 was the cookies that he made today? I think.
Yeah, whatever.
He had the number 2 and 26 on his cookie mans, which he also had a UGA sucks, which I mean that's a bold strategy to be throwing up like to allow a team to get into your head so much that you have to make a cookie with their name on it for your Christmas cookie manufacturing. I can safely say that you will never find me putting Alabama on any of my Christmas cookies that we're going to be making this season,
Mm,
which we do on Christmas Eve, by the way. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that there's a little bit of nervousness out there amongst the Bammers.
mhm.
Um, yeah, like I said, I think that Marler has kind of put himself out there as what's the Voldemort or whatever
Oh,
he's
Voldemort. Yeah.
Voldemort. Yeah, he's the Bama sacrificial lamb right now, as far as I've seen.
Yeah. I would say
To answer the question, I would say they will never acknowledge that. They
I
will
agree.
never ever acknowledge that. All that we can hope for is that they don't have any wide receivers or quarterbacks get knocked out or anything like that, and then they have no excuses. But then I can guarantee you, as soon as the clock strikes 0 and UGA is victorious and they're sent home in tears and maybe the stadium's completely empty and devoid of Alabama fans by and large at the end of the game. But what you're going to hear from that point moving forward was that, oh, this is a rebuilding year. This is the worst Alabama team Saban's had. We'll be back next year. You're not going to be able to beat us next year. Blah, 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 blah.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree. As far as the end of Saban, I'm at the point now where I just think it's going to be age, and
Right.
that's it. So we just got to wait till he hits his certain age where Miss Terry tells him he has to retire. So I don't know.
The guy has basically willed this team to an 11-1 record, which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Wait, 11-1? Is it 11-1?
Yeah, they're 11-1.
Yeah,
you got it right.
11-1.
You got it.
Yeah.
Stop questioning yourself. You got this.
Sorry.
All right, Fletcher Proctor. I was nervous before the 2021 SEC championship game. I was nervous before the 2022 CFP championship, but then Kirby won in Indy and then in LA. I'm not nervous entering this game. Kirby has become the best big game coach in college football. What is the opposite? What is the opposite of Munsoning? And I have to include that Fletcher included a GIF. It was Kevin McAllister in Home Alone saying, "I'm not afraid anymore," when he's walking out of the house.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Ooh, man.
I will say that probably wasn't the best GIF, because immediately what happened after that is the man with the salt, old man. I can't remember, old man, whatever, the guy with the salt.
Yeah. The guy with the shovel
came out of nowhere, and he goes running back into the house screaming. So I don't like the omens there.
They became friends in the end, John. You just got to go a little. You got to go a little further.
Yeah. I would say the opposite of Munsoning would be Goldberging. Who's next?
I like that. I was gonna say Kirbying. I'm gonna say Kirbying. Is it Kirbying though? Kirby doesn't really say we're gonna win. So
he doesn't, but Goldberg does.
Goldberg does. Yeah.
Who's next?
Not Ric Flair. I think that was a suggestion.
No, absolutely not Ric Flair. No. I appreciate that entry. However, if you are a listener of this podcast and not on the Twitters and not on the gift game, I have an amazing gift of Ric Flair as a Georgia fan, and I tweeted it out last year or whenever it was that he was like at game day with everybody, and somebody responded, was like, he's like a Florida fan, right? And I was confused, and so I went back and I looked, and like basically he's just a chameleon for attention, basically, which surprised.
Yes. Right? He hops from team to team.
Which right now
Michigan last year or something.
He's really big on Michigan apparently. Yeah, still. Whatever, dude.
Okay, we'll go Goldberging. I like that. So when that happened, I've got a GIF that from the podcast. It's Goldberg like flipping Ric Flair, by the way. So we got to go with that one. All right, 51-7 GATA. What's y'all's favorite SEC championship win? 2002 Arkansas, about time. 2005 LSU, DJ's moment. 2017 Auburn going to the playoff. 2022 LSU undefeated going into the playoff. Do you have a favorite?
I mean, selfishly, it's 2005 because I was there.
Okay. I have the same reasoning. So mine is 2002 because I was there.
Yeah. 2005 was pretty phenomenal. I remember 2002, but I was not there.
Okay. Yeah. 2002, I was there with my whole family. Basically the crew that was at Fripp for Thanksgiving, minus all the children, because none of them were born yet. And we were all there together. And I mean, that was the first SEC championship game win for Georgia. It's like George Foster said, it was sweeter than a Cinnabon.
Sweeter than a Cinnabon. I like it. Yeah. My rationale on that was because I actually was playing soccer for like a travel team, like after college, a local travel team. And one of the guys that was on the team is an LSU fan, and he invited me to go to the games. And I had no idea before the game that I was going to be sitting amongst LSU alumni. But I was like completely surrounded by LSU fans, and I had a good old time in that game.
Amazing. Yeah, dude. It's fun. It's fun. I haven't been since 2003. So
yeah, I was kind of hoping that Milroy's pass was going to fall incomplete on the last game because I was kind of hoping that the ticket prices would fall as a result of that. Oh, they actually went up $100 since we've started recording, which is amazing.
Nice.
Oh no, I take that back. That was just no. They've actually stayed pretty consistent the last few weeks. I've been kind of watching the secondary market. Looks like $442 is the get-in price, which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, that is crazy. It's not like $8 in 1976. It's not like
$8 or $43 or whatever.
All right, let's see. Jimmy Duncan, another compliment. Great job all season with the podcast. Which coach will be interviewed going into halftime, and what will be the dumb question?
It will probably be Nick Saban. How do you stop Carson Beck?
I like that.
That's my prediction.
I also think it'll be Saban. And he's gonna be asked, how did you let
McConkey? He got on his donkey.
Sorry. That's my prediction. All right.
I love it.
TJ Witten, no Brock Bowers and no Ladd McConkey against Tech. Perhaps a little more manufactured adversity for this team before the SEC championship game. With that being said, do y'all think that we have finally broken the curse of the Benz? I just want to add, Gene Farnborough also asked about those same players. He wanted to know, were they actually unable to go versus Tech, or were they being saved for the SEC championship game? Maybe Kirby playing some chess again. So Kirby had kind of a weird answer about that, right?
I think it's a combination.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of holding them back versus saving them, versus actually they've been hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Ladd has been hurt basically all season. We know Brock had surgery, and Tate basically, was it an MCL sprain or something like that? Or
man, now I've forgotten again. They banged knees. I feel like it was just like a bone. It was like a contusion or something. Yeah.
A deep contusion.
Yeah,
is usually what they call that. So I would say that by and large, there's some validity to holding them out from an injury standpoint, because like I said, Brock, remember he had that situation, was it in the Ole Miss game where he kind of like came up a little bit?
It was Tennessee. There's one on the sideline where he got up kind of gimpy.
Yeah, he got up kind of gimpy. And Ladd, as we've known, has had the back issues all season long, and he had the ankle boot that he was in for which game was that for?
Coming off of Ole Miss.
Coming out of Ole Miss, yeah. So he was in the boot all week long. So like, there's some legitimacy to some of these, and Ra was a fairly recent injury too. I mean, didn't seem like it was too substantial, but I feel like it's one of those situations where they just didn't want them to seriously exacerbate any of those things to rule them out of this game and any future contests.
Agreed. As far as the curse of the Benz, I mean,
I would say that the curse of the Benz is not really a thing, because we've won an SEC championship in the Benz.
We've won an SEC championship in the Benz. The last time we played in the Benz, we waxed Oregon. So
right, yeah. I would say what you're probably
sorry. The last time, oh man, I'm skipping a game. The last time we played in the Benz, we beat Ohio State. Sorry,
right.
You want to leave that out. So I guess the last two times we played there, we waxed Oregon, and then we beat Ohio State.
And we beat Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was at the Benz, right?
Yeah, the Cincinnati game. Yeah, that was the Peach Bowl.
Right.
That's the COVID Peach Bowl.
The COVID Peach Bowl, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've definitely won in the Benz. I believe that question was intended to be phrased the Bama curse at the Benz.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have not beaten Alabama at the Benz. That is a true statement. So
correct.
Yeah.
So I would say that by definition, if that's the intention of that question, we have not broken the curse, but we will.
I like it. All right. Red Building. 1. How many points are the refs going to cost us? Hey, SEC refs this week. I don't know. Kirby did say about that something along the lines of like,
we have ACC refs this week, really?
No. SEC. We had ACC last week.
Okay.
And so that was the problem. And Kirby said that apparently the refs in the ACC just average more penalties. Like they call more penalties. So that was his way of kind of like
Some
getting around.
some quiet shade.
Exactly. So hopefully we're good to go there. And then he said too, if Alabama wins, if Alabama wins and it's intercepted, caught by the Bulldogs at the 20 to the 25, the 50, now the 40, near the sideline to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown Georgia on their second interception of the night. Well played, Brett. Well played.
Well played. I don't know that I've busted that out this week. I need to bust that out on Marler at some point this week.
Yeah. I used it. I can't remember what it was, but I used it on somebody last week. It's still fun to do.
It's still fun to do.
The other thing I'll tell you, I talked to Brett today. We were texting because he was saying, at what point do I need to be worried that the wallpaper hasn't come out yet?
Is it Friday?
So we decided 5:00 on Wednesday. If there's no official wallpaper out from the Georgia Twitter account, I might riot. Because I had already done I had already been. I was like, Brett, don't worry, I've already been looking into this today. I was seeing like when they tend to come out. They usually come out Monday or Tuesday, but the Tennessee one did come out on the Wednesday before the Tennessee game. So I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? I haven't been looking at my phone. Maybe it came out while I've been recording. I doubt it.
We need to get some of these McGill Society folks together to figure out who's in charge of that. I would say that that's an attention to detail element that Kirby has not. Mark Richt has lost control of the wallpapers.
Wallpapers. That's great. That's great. All right. Let's see. Chad Jarvis. What's the worry meter at? And how many times does Gary gloat over how good Alabama and Milroe are? I mean, my worry meter is not crazy.
I don't think he's going to be gloating about how good Milroe is, but maybe in the running game to certain elements, because like I have a feeling that he's going to break some runs, but just because like we've shown we've had a propensity, and they Georgia Tech put some film up. Buster Faulkner was able to scheme some things that exacerbated our problems. The issue that I would take with that is that, like I said, like we talked about in the review, is that we play pretty flat, I guess, for lack of a better description, or pretty vanilla. In all of the big games this season, we've outperformed our expectations.
Yeah, agreed.
That's the worry meter that I have there, is that we've outperformed expectations on every big game. I guess if you were to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, like, what's your worry?
No, I just don't worry anymore. Like Munson is dead. Like I don't see any point in it. What is the point of me getting worked up about it now? I'm going to go into it now, right before the game. I get worried before every game, like right at kickoff, but that's just, but like, that's just like I got it. Like I get butterflies, it's more like excitement, I guess, almost like nervous excitement. Right. So that'll happen. But I'll be putting up all the outdoor Christmas decorations on Saturday to help me get through that. But yeah, Munzening's dead. I'm not going to worry. Yeah, I don't gain anything from it.
I would tend to agree with that. I guess that would effectively put you at a 5 or below.
I'll say this.
5 or under.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first game all season that it's like, most of the games is like Georgia doesn't have to play close to its best game to win. Right? Like this game, do we have to play our best to beat Alabama? I still think it's a level lower than that. I don't think we necessarily do. But I mean, this is for real. Like this is a big game. This is by far the best team we played. It's the SEC championship. But you know what? I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
So I guess a 5. I guess 5. Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, you're even keel going into this.
Right. Yep.
I would say that the thing that I kind of go back to is just, again, our team right now has been largely driven by how well the offense performs, and our offense is pretty well better than theirs in pretty much every aspect of the game. So in every facet of the game, we are or in every facet of the offense, I feel like that we have a substantially stronger upside than they do, in our ability to basically, you know, be successful. If you look at the success rate numbers, it's probably one of the biggest disparate, metrics that you can look at. You can look at yards per play. We're basically over a yard per play better than them on offense. You look at third down numbers. Our offense is better than their offense in terms of, our successfulness. I just made that up, but you know, our third down ability to convert has been unparalleled in the nation, I believe, right?
Mhm.
I think that was something that they were talking about, was that we were one of the best in the country on third down conversion. So, in a tight game, when you need that first down to either ice the game or extend a drive that's going to score a touchdown or put points on the board, I mean, all of that being said is that this shapes up to a game where if you need points, our offense can get it, and I feel like that we can get it pretty quickly. But I think that that's just one of those things that we've been able to do throughout the season, is we've been able to figure things out on both offense and on defense.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Mark Davis. He's got a two-parter. The second one we already talked about. So he said, I could see Georgia trying to stop the run and make Milroe beat them through the air. So we talked about that earlier. We agreed on that. But he said defensively, for the Georgia defense, for the Alabama defense, do you think Alabama commits to stop the run or the pass game of Georgia? What are they going to try to take away?
What are they going to try to take away?
Yeah.
So historically in this game, both teams try to take away the run.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back to all of our games. I mean, it took Stetson, airing it out in the fourth quarter,
Mm-hmm.
to win, because we couldn't really get a whole lot going on the ground. 2012, it was a slog in 2012, on the ground for us. The SEC, I don't know, it's hard to, the SEC championship when we played them, I'm convinced that there was a sickness that had impacted our ability, but it kind of seems like the anomaly in this entire
Yeah, the
argument.
problem was our defense in that game, not the
Right.
offense. I mean, the
Right.
offense was trying to play catch up because the defense had the floodgates open in the second quarter.
Right. But yeah, I mean, Kirby's DNA is a Nick Saban team, and Nick Saban teams first and foremost stop the run.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you. Let's see, Chili Dog. We can't possibly afford to spot Bama a TD on their first drive, can we? Oh, we're going to anyway. Cool. I'm not worried. Is that crazy? I don't think it's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy.
It's what this team has done. So
Yeah.
You're good. You're not alone there. You're not alone there.
The good news is that they're not going to be fazed by it, because they witnessed the earth shatter at Tennessee, and I don't think that the Benz is going to be able to present that much of an intimidating factor in that regard, because they basically came out in a raucous environment on the road, almost unilaterally, Tennessee fans by and large. It's not going to be that way in Atlanta. And first play of the game, they scored a touchdown, and the entire stadium basically broke loose from, reality.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're going to, like I said, that they've been there. They've seen this adversity. It's not going to phase them. And I think that's the big takeaway, is that, and you hear that in some of the player interviews that they talk about, like Javon Bullard is probably the best example. If you want to go and look at his interviews and look at the latest episode of Kirby Smart All Access, or UGA All Access, whatever it's called. You can stream it for free at georgiadogs.com, but basically they know that they're not out of it at any point. They're always going to be in the game. And that's the mentality that this team has.
Agreed. All right. The DGD podcast wants to know which position battle are y'all most excited to watch? He said, for example, like the receivers versus the secondary, the OL versus the DL, etc. I've got one. I actually want to hone in on one of his and get a little more specific.
Okay.
So his receivers versus the secondary. I want to see Jermaine Burton versus Javon Bullard.
Well,
that's what I'm watching for.
I mean, to a certain extent, that will be there because I mean, Bullard
it will
be. What you're talking about is Lassiter versus.
No, but Burton doesn't play the outside receiver. Burton is like the guy that goes in motion.
Okay,
I believe. So I'm not sure that's gonna. Burton is more like the Z or whatever.
Okay, I thought that Lassiter was usually matched up on their best receiver, and in either way, like that would in the slot that would be Tyke Smith, right?
Yeah, but I just feel like the way Burton, the routes he runs and tries to go deep, I don't know. I could see that getting into Bullard's
like
area.
I said, Bullard's going to have a lot of opportunity for sure. I'm interested in, okay, so if you want to boil this down, if you look at the entirety of these teams and where the matchups are the strongest in our favor is, to your point, the secondary, right? So our secondary versus their secondary is probably going to be a pretty, our secondary versus their receivers is going to be a pretty favorable matchup because Jermaine Burton is their best receiver from a PFF grade or whatever. He grades out at an 82 right now. And that he's their highest graded. It took a Georgia receiver, ironically, to be the best receiver on their team, which is just wild to say out loud.
Yeah.
But everywhere else beyond that, they're grading out at 73 or below.
Okay.
So our secondary versus their receivers, if we're able to control Burton and control, all of their receivers, like I said, that's going to be a situation where if we're able to stop the run and put them into a position where they're having to throw the ball, I like the matchup of our secondary versus their receivers, because on the flip side, on our secondary, our lowest graded secondary position player is Dalen Everett. Dalen Everett, which if Humphrey is back, he's probably going to be sitting the bench, and Humphrey's not graded out here, but if you take Dalen Everett out, our lowest graded secondary position is Dan Jackson at 75. So yeah, I mean, you look at those matchups and you like that. Some other matchups, our running backs versus their linebackers.
That was my second one.
I mean, that's going to be a pretty even matchup. I mean, the grades on Edwards and Milton, 78 and 88, Dejon's at 78 and Kendall's at 88. Dallas Turner's their highest graded, Chris Braswell, a defensive end. He grades out at an 82 on the edge, and Dallas Turner is 80.5. So like I said, they've got some players. They've got some players out there on the front seven.
Got it. All right, let's see. Joshua 24 fan. Why was Tech able to have continued success running the ball, and what can the Georgia defense do differently when they play Alabama? I'm really not reading anything into what happened against Tech, honestly. I think played. I think it's scheme. So I think we're not going to play vanilla at this. So we're at the point now where the long con is over. We're going to empty the clip everywhere on both sides of the ball. Like there's no need to hold anything back now. So I don't know. I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about what happened to Tech. I'm not saying that like Alabama can't run because they got Milroe. He's a scramble. It's going to be hard to stop, but I wouldn't worry about what you saw against Tech comparing that to Alabama.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Saban had any rat poison. Were they holding out their best receivers, their best players, their best offensive linemen? I don't think that was the case. I mean, they had to
Right.
win. They had to win a literal shootout against Auburn. Literally coming down. Their entire season came down to that 4th and what 30,
4th and 31. 4th and
Fourth
31.
4th and 31.
Is this? Yeah. So this is John Michael D had said, did both Kirby and Saban shoot for some rat poison / manufactured adversity this weekend, or was Alabama just that bad? Is it possible to get an Eli Gold call as good as the pick six again? But yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it was rat poison on the Saban side. Auburn, because Auburn has done that. You're at Jordan Hare. I think that was more rivalry game. Some fluky things happened. And we saw Auburn do that against us. So not so much there. I think with us, we've seen that exact same thing happen earlier in the season. It would be hard to get a better Eli Gold call as good as the pick six.
It would be hard to get that. I'm trying to think of a scenario that would be good. I mean, all right, so here's a scenario for you. Let's say they're in a 4th and 31 against Georgia, and we do the smart thing and rush 3 or 4, right?
Right.
And we're able to sack him.
Right. And that would be delicious.
And Milroe sacked.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I don't know. I think
it wouldn't be as delicious.
It wouldn't be as
It
delicious.
would still be pretty tasty.
Agreed. Let's see. Tim Riley, friend of the show, Tim Riley. We'll wrap up with him. Who are the offensive and defensive MVPs for our dogs on Saturday? I mean, I've got to go with Bullard because he's
I've got to go with Bullard on the defense.
He's always a defensive MVP.
He's my favorite. He's my favorite dog right now, dude. He's my favorite dog.
Yeah. Check out his show in the Players Lounge. He's hilarious.
Yeah,
him and Jackson Meeks.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Javon Bullard, like just talk, like the guy just he comes across very humble, but he is very much aware of how good he is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so we agree on the defense.
Yeah, we agree on the defense. Offensive MVP is going to be Carson Beck.
Okay. My plan was that if you said Carson Beck, I was going to say Kendall Milton. And if you said anyone other than Carson Beck, I was going to say Carson Beck. So I'm just going to disagree just to have a little fun, John.
Nice. I like it.
All right. That's it for the listener questions. Are you ready?
Let's hear it.
Oh my God!
My God, a freshman.
Trying to put glasses on it.
It is time for Coaches Over Unders SEC Championship versus Alabama edition. All right, John, I still have the lead, even though moment by moment you have been creeping up on me. I have the lead. So I choose to go first.
Keep chopping.
You're going to keep chopping. I know. All right. Starting with the Georgia offense, over under 275 passing yards for the Georgia offense. I'm going to go over.
I'm also going to go over.
All right. Over to you. Over under 400 yards of offense total for Georgia.
Over.
I'm going to agree. Over. And then my turn. Over under 2.5 rushing touchdowns.
That's to you, right? Or
that is for me. That is for me. I'm thinking here. I'm trying to do math with my score because David Lee gets mad at us when they don't add up. But hey, you hedge your bets. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm going to say over.
I'm going to go under.
Okay. All right, over to you on the defense. Over under 1.5 touchdowns by Alabama in the first half.
In the first half?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go under.
Okay. I'll go under. That doesn't let you gain on me. Haha, strategy. All right, my turn.
We've
Over-
reached that point in the season.
Over under 75 rushing yards for JM4. That would be Jalen Milrow. I'm going to go under.
I'm gonna go under.
All right. Over to you. Over under 4.5 receptions for Jermaine Burton.
I'm gonna go under.
Man, I really that's like so tasty. I'm gonna go under. Special teams. So I guess it's my turn, right? My turn.
Yeah.
Special teams. Total field goals attempted by both teams. 3.5
Total by both teams?
Yeah. 3.5 total.
Okay.
I'm gonna go under.
I'm gonna go over.
Okay. And then for you, last one, miscellaneous. CBS broadcast references to both 2021 games versus Bama. Over under 5.5.
I'm gonna go under.
Do I test fate with a miscellaneous? Define a reference. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna go under to match you and not let the miscellaneous take us off the rails on the standings. Shout out to Coach Trill. Thanks as always for submitting them, and appreciate you checking them as well.
Jim's trying to Kirby Death March me on the over-unders.
Amazing.
She's just he's just grinding out the clock on me.
Amazing. All right. Time to get for our final predictions. So for input, CBC, R2 Sam, our friends at Chapel Bill Curve and Dog Quant over there have a predicted score of Georgia 25.7 to Alabama 21. Looking at the spread, I looked at this up on OddsShark. So Georgia is now a 6-point favorite. So it's been in flux a bit this week. Changed when I put this together yesterday, it was 5.5. Now it moved to 6.
I thought didn't it open at 4?
I had heard that. Yeah. When I looked on OddsShark, I think it was 4 like last week before all the games or something.
Mm-hmm.
On Saturday, I think it was 5. Or sorry, Sunday morning it opened at 5 from what I saw today. But it's been bet down to 6. So I guess that means money's coming in on Georgia. Over under at 54 points. That gives an implied score of Georgia 30 to Alabama 24. The OddsShark predicted score is Georgia 40.8 to Alabama 31.2. So they've got a bit more of a shootout. The College Football Nerds modeler has Georgia 29 to Alabama 19.2. And then the last thing, the scoring impact that I do. So Alabama is averaging 32 points on offense versus the Power 5. They have been allowing 21.6 points on defense against the Power 5. Georgia's offensive impact, they scored 9.8 points more than teams allow and hold teams on defense to 10.94 points fewer than they score. So if you do that math, that would give us Georgia 31.5 to Alabama 21.3. So all these things are pointing towards a dog's victory. John, you want to go first? Do you want me to go?
I'll let you go first, and then I'll put on my mic drop out there.
Okay. So for me, I think in the past we've gone into these games like, can we beat Alabama? We now know that we can. So I'm not going to go into this whole like, can we do it in Mercedes-Benz and all these things. I think Georgia has the better football team. I think we protect the football. We play our brand of football. We should come away with a win. So I'm going to go actually like right along with what the impact is. I'm going to go Georgia 31, Alabama 21.
Ooh, I like it. When we started putting these stats together, we started talking about the scoring impact. I feel like we need to put that out there because our model, the My Gotta Podcast model, has been pretty on par with some of these other scoring predictors, right?
Right.
Which our model is literally just how does our team perform against everyone else, and how do we impact them versus everything else. right? Like what's
Yep.
our average?
Right. Exactly.
Which, in my opinion, is probably the bigger indicator. So yeah, I'm gonna throw mine out there, Jim. I'm gonna say 33-18.
Nice. I like it. Oh man. I would have to have some Buffalo Trace and Nutter Butters after that score. Like I did last time.
Buffalo Trace, Nutter Butters. What was the Nutter Butters that you sent? You sent some pictures of recently that were like
That was so after we beat Tech, because I was with my dad. So my dad and I had Nutter Butters and Buffalo Trace in Indianapolis at the hotel.
Yes.
And so that's just like whenever we're together, that's our post game celebration. So we did that at Fripp after we beat Tech this past weekend.
But somebody sent like a picture of like Nutter Butter, like some kind of flavored Nutter Butters that we were all kind of like, what? Like Kit Kat, or like Kit Kat Nutter Butters or something like that.
Oh, I don't even remember that. Now I got to go look that up.
What? Yeah, I could have sworn it was on one of our text threads or someone tweeted us. Like I can't remember. It's gonna
We'll have to
bother
find
me.
it. We'll find
It's
it.
gonna bother me.
Well, it's a big weekend of college football. We talked about the playoff stuff, but just for the games impacting the playoff. So you got Oregon and Washington is Friday night at 8:00. So number 3 versus number 5. I think the winner of that game is in the playoff. And then you've got Saturday at noon, Oklahoma State against Texas. So even if Texas wins, though, they need help. But if Oklahoma State beats Texas, that starts to throw some things a bit awry. The other games are in the evening after our game will have wrapped. So you got Louisville, number 14, Louisville against number 4, Florida State in Charlotte at 8:00 for the ACC championship, and then number 16, Iowa against number 2, Michigan in Indianapolis at 8:00 for the Big Ten championship. So I think Pac-12 champ is in, and then we'll see where everything falls with the rest of everything else.
Oh, Pac-12. Talk about things that are ending, right?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, neither of those schools will be in the Pac-12 after this year.
Right. Who do you got in those games, Jim?
All right, I've got Oregon in the Pac-12.
I like Oregon.
I've got Oregon there. I've got Texas.
It'll be like Dan Lanning pulling a Kirby on the old rematch situation.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like Oregon should have won the first game anyway. I felt like they got a little too aggressive on going for it on 4th down for my take. I feel like they won the rematch. I feel like they've been more consistent than Washington, honestly.
Right.
I got Texas over Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah. I agree with that.
What about Florida State, Louisville? Louisville coming off a loss to Kentucky, but Florida State, they don't have the quarterback.
Given the fact that Kentucky just embarrassed them,
yeah,
I'm probably going to go with Florida State on this one with the backup.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I don't see them losing that game with so much at stake.
Yeah, I don't either. And then you got Michigan, Iowa. I mean, that's going to be, I would imagine Michigan. They probably won't, because it's the Big Ten. It probably won't be like crazy high scoring, but I think it'll be. I don't see it being even a scare for Michigan.
Yeah,
Harbaugh's back, right? Harbaugh's back. They get Harbaugh back.
Do they?
Yeah, I think he was suspended for the remainder of the regular season, is from what I recall.
How amazing would it be if they lost this game after he comes back?
That would be hilarious. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I think that I don't see a reasonable way that they lose that game, but you know what? Hey man, was it Kirk Ferentz, right? Like he's the head coach at Iowa, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Yeah.
Man, that guy, they've been living and dying on defense, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the over under for their games is usually like, it's like 23.5 or whatever. Like it's always super low.
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Michigan, they don't really like to throw the ball a whole lot, right?
No. Yeah.
like that McCarthy guy, right? He's their quarterback, and I feel like Josh had put some stats out today talking about the quarterback performances over time, and you look at like the total attempts for McCarthy versus everyone else. Like, yes, he's doing really great, but like he's just not throwing the ball nearly as much as everybody else. It was
Right.
kind of interesting if you saw those graphs, like the upward trend of different quarterbacks throughout the country. Like Carson Beck's basically been just a steady increase. Milrose had a pretty decent uptick that's been a little bit sharper as the season went along. Penix has kind of flatlined in terms of his progression, and McCarthy's like been progressively getting better, but like he's just so far behind everyone else in attempts.
Yeah.
If that's the case, and this turns into like Michigan's trying to impose its will on the ground and not throwing the ball like they have been all season, like that could be a recipe for a close game. So I don't know. I don't see them losing it, but I can see a world in which that gets to be a very uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's possible. That's possible. And the team doesn't know how to play with Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. They're like, who's this guy?
Right. Or they're like, oh, coach, where are the plays? What are they going to run?
Right. All right. Well, I know. So you'll be watching at home, right? That's the plan for Saturday?
Yeah. I had thoughts that I might go down there. I could probably still pull that together with the kids, and I had visions of going down there to experience like SEC fanfare and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Rucker is playing a concert at SEC fanfare this weekend.
South Carolina fan, but okay, interesting.
Yeah. I think it's at Centennial Park, if I remember correctly. I feel like we mentioned it on the podcast before. But I really enjoy going down and like walking around the whole fan experience thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rain has me a little worried, so I'm going to be watching the weather there.
Gotcha.
Carter's been invited to a buddy of his house, so he definitely wouldn't be going with me. So that would mean that I would have to take either my teen or my younger kids. That doesn't set up very well for a tailgate. So
right.
Most likely we will, even if I were to go down and experience it in the morning, would probably still be coming home to watch.
Okay. Well, we'll be doing the annual wood thing where we finalize all the Christmas decorations, particularly outside. I'll be doing all the outside decorations on Saturday to keep myself busy, and then head into the house, watch the game. Weather, we'll see how the weather is. Might actually watch this one inside. Might be a little too cold outside. We'll check. But we'll see. But we'll have the bean dip. We'll have Pontus Tennis bean dip together.
So that sounds amazing. I might have to make some Pontus famous bean dip this weekend, just for consistency's sake.
I think you should.
All right, so I do have a clarification. So Darius Rucker is playing Saturday, December 2nd at 12 o'clock at SEC Fanfare, live on Marty and McGee,
okay.
the SEC network. It is going to be inside at the World Congress Center. So it is a free live concert at 12 o'clock Saturday, December 2nd.
Okay. Nice.
So yeah. So that could be fun.
Yeah.
SEC Fanfare being free is always interesting. So
yeah, I enjoyed it when I've gone there and gone to it. It's always a good time.
Yeah.
All right, man. The regular season is done. The last season of college football as we know it, and had to be these guys, right?
From here, everything changes. I would love for the final game on CBS to be a big, fat, and massive L for the Fighting Pachyderms.
Agreed.
those land grabbers in Tuscaloosa have got to go down, Jim. They must atone for their sins.
They must be stopped.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be a fun afternoon, regardless of how it goes. With the plans and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the rain stays off, but I'm definitely gonna be watching the weather pretty closely because I would love to have the game outside like I did last week. That was fun. Kids enjoyed it. But yeah, man, it should be a good game regardless.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is
Game day's in town. We haven't even mentioned that. Game day's in town.
Game day will be there. I mean, this is, I feel like we're not as much considering what we're trying to do. I feel like you would think we would get talked about a little bit more. I mean, we're trying to do something that has basically never been done, has never been done in the modern era with the three-peat. I mean, it hinges on this game. I mean,
Right.
and man, I mean, like why not us? Why not end this era of college football? On a run for a three-peat, and it starts here. We got to do it here to make that to keep that a reality. So
Yeah, I mean, Michigan just beat Ohio State, CFP, big time CFP ranking, and they still kept Georgia number one.
Yeah.
We have a chance to do, I don't, was it earlier this season, that no team had gone wire to wire AP number one?
in the CFP era,
there's only a handful of teams that have ever done that.
yeah.
I can't remember.
It might have been no one in the CFP era, but
either way, it's very difficult to go wire to wire number one, and we've got a chance to do it. Three-peats on the line. Send Gary out. Everybody loves to hate on Gary. He's big Alabama fan, right? Like, why does Gary love Alabama? Let's send him out unhappy. That's the only way we could do it.
Agreed.
All right, man. Well, you guys have fun. You guys have fun with Ponda's famous bean dip up there, and I'm gonna try to replicate on my side. I'm going to try to acquire a special bourbon for this weekend. Is there any special bourbons that you're trying to get this weekend?
No, I might maybe go into the cabinet because I have things that I haven't opened, so I may go into the cabinet and open something I haven't opened. But I mean, like I said, man, I'm sticking to this Yellowstone. Probably actually
keep the main thing. How was the Yellowstone, by the way?
It's good. It's excellent. Okay. But like I said, take the train track, and every time Georgia scores, we're going to hear that train whistle or horn in the bends, knowing that we're taking Alabama to the train track.
Yes, I love it. All right, let's end on that. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.